Hello and welcome to From the Beale End, the Burnley podcast. This is the debrief for Preston North End 0, Burnley 0. What looks on the surface like a bore draw was anything but, and we are certainly going to get into quite a few of the talking points from that Deepdale draw in this episode. We've got the usual pod squad: Justin Connolly, Simon Evans, myself, Andrew Greaves, Paul Woodhouse and Chris Borden, and an extra special guest. We always said we would get him on, all the way from the USA. It's JJ. What? The other side of Alkincourt. It's Julian Jordan, regular contributor to BBC Radio Lancashire. Julian, welcome. First appearance on the podcast.
Great to be here at long last. I mean, it feels like a sort of retirement home for people who support Burnley, who work in marketing, comms and journalism. So glad to be here amongst kindred spirits. So yeah.
I'm really glad that you
when you listen to the pod. As I said, when you listen to the pod, obviously you can visualise things, but actually seeing you all as I can at the moment, there's a fair collection of bald heads on this. So it's like if you squint at it, it looks like a shit game of billiards.
Yes.
I was going to say you clearly fit the criteria that we look for. I mean, we're just waiting for Chris to lose his luscious locks, and then he can be a fully paid up member of the From the Beale End squad. There's not many shampoo sales coming their way from most of us, is there? But well, you're very welcome. Thank you very much for coming on. I know we all enjoy your contributions whenever you're on Radio Lancashire and things like that, and we have been wanting you to come on. So we'll start with you. So what did you make of yesterday's game? I mean, like I say, on the surface, another clean sheet, another 0-0 draw. But it was a game of missed opportunities, weren't it? Fairly glaring missed opportunities. And the game really, as I talked to somebody this morning, it wouldn't have been too unfair if we'd have won 2 or 3-0.
No, that sort of scoreline would have probably reflected the balance of play, really, and clear-cut chances created. But I think the thing is, as a supporter going to an away game, the experience is actually about more than just what happens when the players cross the white line. And so, I have to say it was a pretty good day out, and I'm conscious that there'll be a lot of listeners who are going there again in a couple of weeks for the cup game. And I went to a place called St Gregory's, which is like a working men's club attached to St Gregory's Church, just by the ground, and I can't recommend it highly enough. It was a really good atmosphere in there, mixed, North End supporters and loads of Burnley as well. Reasonably cheap ale. There's loads of draws, for stuff and that. Great. So I recommend that. So my day started well. And obviously, when you get into an away game, it's boisterous on the concourse. It's absolutely packed. It's really exciting, And then when we took our seats, the away end, it looked magnificent. You got 6,000 Burnley fans there in great voice as well. So everything was set up, and I was expecting an away victory, just like I think most of us were, really. So it was frustrating and disappointing. I can't fault too many aspects of the performance, if I'm honest. I thought we largely controlled it. We kept the ball well, as we do, and we did create chances. And when there is this kind of slightly anti-Parker agenda, isn't there, where people say, Parker ball, and we bore everybody to death. But actually, it was reasonably progressive at points, and as you say, there were clear-cut chances, and you cannot blame Scott Parker for players failing to capitalise on clear-cut chances. Lyle Foster had one either side of half-time. The one in the first half at the other end of the ground from us, he skied it. The one in the second half was probably a worse miss, but I can kind of make excuses for him in a way, because I have to say, as he got the ball, I glanced to the linesman because I thought he might be offside, and I think he thought that as well, and he dithered slightly. And I heard one sort of piece of commentary where somebody said, when I saw it subsequently, that he'd hit the post. That's pretty generous because it scuffed the outside of the post and it was never going in. But I think that sort of highlights our real problem, actually, because, if you've got that sort of predatory striker, I don't care whether it's a little guy or a big sort of target type guy, if they're predatory, they get a chance like that, they batter it in the back of the net and they worry about the linesman after the event. I think we've seen too much of that this season, where we get into pretty good positions and players are taking that extra touch. They've just not got that sort of killer predatory instinct. That's what we've lacked. So all in all, disappointing, but as you say, the run goes on. We're getting pretty close to the 23 games unbeaten now that Sean Dyche enjoyed in that promotion season.
Bingo!
And another clean sheet. We get into miracle territory here. It's just gone on so long with the number of clean sheets. So there's a lot of good stuff going on, but as I say, that I think the thing that could cost us over the season is that just lack of a predatory instinct up front.
Yeah, definitely. For those with a bingo card, just under 5 minutes for the first mention of Dyche, which is always good.
Yeah.
Chris, I don't know why I would come to you after mentioning Sean Dyche, but there we go.
Bingo!
Julian's right, isn't he? I mean, you think about your Andre Grays, you think about your Danny Ings, you think even further back, your Mike Conroys, your Andy Paytons, your Roger Eli's, your John Francis, at your them kind of chances that Lyle's had over the last couple of games, which he's not converted. It doesn't matter whether you're a modern footballer or you're a footballer playing on, bogs in the 90s. You need to be scoring them goals, don't you? Especially that first half where it's a brilliant move. There's a little back heel and the little touch on, and you're almost kind of, I almost had my shirt over my head celebrating, before Lyle had touched it. You need that as a striker. You need to know exactly where the goal is, and to hell with any decisions that come after.
Absolutely. I mean, he missed a similar one to the one in the first half yesterday against Oxford, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
In that spell when we should have been 4-0 up after about 12 minutes. And I was saying, I know he's played sections of this season and a bit under Vincent on the left-hand side. And I say I've not seen him where he played in Belgium, but I mean, he's got 25 goals in 160 games. It's appalling, that record. He isn't a natural goal scorer, and yet he leads the line for South Africa. When fit, but there's no excuse for that. You've got to take those opportunities. I mean, Anthony had a great opportunity. We were sort of joking in the WhatsApp group that Anthony should have picked him out, and then we were sort of saying, well, maybe he knew he wasn't going to finish anyway. So, but to create more than enough. Trafford didn't have anything to do whatsoever other than wipe out Osmajic in a perfectly legitimate challenge. But it's so frustrating. The problem all season has been a failure to really create clear-cut opportunities. And then say when we have, by the bucket load the last couple of weeks, we've not been taking them. And you do get that feeling now it's going to ultimately bite us on the backside and mean that we're probably going to have to go through the lottery of the playoffs.
Yeah, and Simon, I mean, we've talked about kind of company style of play, and we've always said, look, company's always said, we want to play progressive football. We want to be this kind of more attacking, fluid football side. To his credit, we have seen that, haven't we, over the last few games? You think about the Oxford game, the Hull game, this game, even the Southampton game, albeit with a different lineup. We have started to see some progression in the style of play under Scott Parker, haven't we?
Yeah, we have, but you just can't escape the mathematics that one win is 3 draws, isn't it? And we're dropping a lot of points. I mean, we were looking through the BBC article, which we'll share on our Twitter account, with the incredible stats about our defence and our defensive record and all the records that could be broken this season. Some of them absolutely smashed by miles, and yet we're not in the top 2. And I just look at it, and yes, we are progressing in the style of play we play. We look more confident on the ball. We're creating more chances than we were. I think that was a lot of the frustration during that sort of stagnant period, was we weren't creating the chances. The chances are being taken there. The decision not to sign a centre forward and to sign, 2 wingers and Ashley Barnes and the fullback in the January window could cost us promotion, really. I mean, it's looking that way at the moment. I mean, we could turn it around. There's not panic stations completely yet or anything. But, that little clip that the club put out of Alan Pace telling Scott Parker that he was signing Ashley Barnes, and is that all right with you, Scott? Really starting to haunt me now, really, because obviously Parker didn't think for 1 minute of bringing on Ashley Barnes to win that game yesterday. He didn't, did he? I mean, with 20 minutes to go, if we'd have had a centre-forward who Scott Parker thought could score a winning goal, he'd have had him on the field. And we don't have that person. We have a centre-forward who would play at left wing because he doesn't score goals when he plays centre-forward. And we have a guy playing as a number 9 who's played at a number 10 most of his career and who's done a reasonable job in that role. It's to me now looks baffling. And we were all quite sort of, we got caught up in the Ashley Barnes thing, didn't we, at the time, just coming just before the Rovers game, and what a boost it is and what a great bit of PR and all that. Well, it's a great bit of PR, but it's not helping us get promoted, is it? And, I think serious questions have to be asked. And I see the chairman goes on Twitter and says he's absolutely delighted with the point. Well, I don't know. Are we delighted with a point away to Preston at this stage in the season? I think they put up a good scrap, but they're sort of side that if you're getting promoted, you go there and you win that game 2-0. So, yeah, some alarm bells starting to ring for me, and I'm starting to get a bit worried about the decisions that were made in January coming back to haunt us.
Yeah, would it? I mean, how easy is it to sign a striker, first of all, in January? I get Simon's point. I think we all, think that perhaps the priorities have been elsewhere and, have been skewed slightly by the fact we brought Ashley Barnes. But I think we commented that Barnes, he didn't look that fit when he first came on, against Rovers. He looked like he was perhaps carrying a little bit of extra Christmas timber, shall we say.
Great for the dressing room, though. He's been great for the dressing room.
Great for the dressing room. So, how easy is it to buy a striker in January? And I, fully respect the fact that we bought Lyle Foster in January. In January, I should say. And are you as panic-stricken as Simon looks sat there in Miami on the recording that we're doing now?
I think it's more a case of kind of chances to goals ratio as opposed to strike. If you think about the amount of money you would have to spend on somebody who has to put these chances away when they're at such, kind of a premium, then that's huge money because we aren't creating a lot. And even though they're absolute sitters that we're missing at the minute, the kind of quality that you need to make sure that they're on the end of that and scoring nearly every single one of them is quite a lot of money. It's not just having somebody up top. And I am starting to get a little bit worried because we're running out of games. These corners that we keep talking about, they keep getting closed off. I'm actually going to start putting money on after 2 decent performances. We have a shithouse like yesterday, arguably, where we always revert back to some kind of 0-0. And I think yesterday a big part of it was that kind of outfield ball to Anthony because the pitch was a bit more like Portsmouth and we couldn't play and we couldn't really up the tempo as much as we'd like to have done. We failed to find a plan B, which a younger Ashley Barnes could have had a field day if we'd have just gone a little bit longer. But I think it's a little bit worrying how we feel that we're running out of games a little bit, and we've got to make sure that we're getting results.
Yeah, and just I think you said in the group. I was just trying to find the message in our WhatsApp group. It wasn't harking back to that aimless punting it upfield or not having a clue up front. I mean, we've been very critical of the lack of clear-cut chances we've created previously earlier in the season. But Saturday was a little bit different, wasn't it? We carved open actually some really nice chances that should have resulted in us having something on the scoreboard.
Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, it wasn't a return to that aimless sort of knocking it about in the middle and all that sort of stuff. We did create chances. I'm feeling everyone's getting a bit too gloomy for my liking on this. We're 5 points off the top. There's plenty of points up for grabs. We've shown a bit of progression over the last few games. We've scored a few goals, and we've created chances in this scrappy game. A big local derby when the form book usually goes out of the window. So I'm not down about it at all. We were unlucky not to win that game, and I know that Lyle Foster's paid big money to put them chances in, isn't he? But in his defence, he's not played that much this. I mean, he's been out a lot over the last year or so with injury and so on, hasn't he? So I don't think you can place all the onus on him. But yeah, I'm okay with that. I think it wasn't a case of 2 steps forward and 1 back. I think it still showed that we're moving in the right direction, that we're being more progressive, that we're creating more chances, and for that kind of bodes well for the rest of the season. To me, it makes me think, well, if we carry on in that vein rather than, the way we were playing before, then we'll be all right. We'll be there and thereabouts come the end of the season, and there's plenty of points available to make up that ground, which isn't that massive even at this stage of the game.
Yeah, and of course, still got Sheffield United at home to come, which is a chance to take points of them. Tonight is Leeds United versus Sunderland. So, we talk about favourable runs, and we'll perhaps go on to look at those fixtures. Just looking then at a couple of the kind of main talking points. One that kind of, in fact, I think both kind of caused plenty of discussion on our WhatsApp group. Let's start with the penalty, because I know this really did split opinion. Julian, let's start with you, because I'm guessing you were, given the fact that we were sat in Manchester, Miami, Cleveland and Hampton watching, and you were in PR1, what did you make of that challenge on Marcus Edwards? At first glance to me, it looked a nailed-on penalty, but what was the feeling like at Deepdale?
Well, the immediate feeling for everyone in the away end, it was a penalty. Everyone appealed for it. All the players appealed for it. My point of view, where I could see it from, I was on row 20, so decent bit of elevation, but literally it was right in front of me. I couldn't have had a better view of it. I could see there was contact, and I've seen subsequently they were saying, he got something of the ball, but he barely got anything of the ball. He clattered, and Edwards would have stayed on his feet, wouldn't he? He'd have played a ball in. When you think of the penalty that we conceded, Sonny against Sunderland the other week, how soft that was. That for me, that yesterday was a stonewall penalty, absolutely nailed on, no debate. And I was slightly astonished when I was on the train on the way home, and I was looking on my phone. And people were saying, it probably wasn't a penalty. So in some studio somewhere, Simon Grayson of all people, you saying not a penalty. I was like, well, you would say that, wouldn't you? For me, 100% all day, absolute stonewall penalty.
Yeah, and our very own refereeing expert, Justin Connolly, you dug out what the rules are, right? Because I was the same. I was one of those people who went, actually, you know what? Yeah. This ref's had a shocker all day, but that's a pretty good decision, looking with the hindsight of a replay, and I wasn't sure it was a penalty. Of course, you want those, and I agree, Julian, it felt a little bit, quite similar to the Sonny one. But the rules actually, as you dug out and stuck on our WhatsApp group, it probably by the letter is a penalty, isn't it? Whether he's got the ball or not, because that's not.
I think so.
That's not the factor we take into consideration.
Well, if you look at the rules of the game, the rules state that it's a foul if, when tackling a player, you are careless, reckless, or do it in such a way as to endanger the safety of another player. There's no reference to whether you touch the ball or not. I know everybody always says that, he touched the ball, so it's not a foul. But that can't be true if you think about it, can it? If you go in, make a square block tackle and then follow through and break someone's leg, you're going to get sent off for that. That's a foul, isn't it? Whether you touch the ball or not. Now, the defender's on the ground sliding towards Edwards. He only touches the ball accidentally because Edwards tries to sort of flick it over him. It doesn't change the course of the ball in any way or anything like that. Now, he's not in control of himself when he does that. So, to my man, that's the very definition of a careless challenge. He takes the player out. Whether he touches the ball or not, doesn't matter. But he's also late to the tackle. He's also, second to the ball, which, I always thought if you get to the ball first and then somebody, knocks you over, then that's a foul. So I don't see any other way that you can say that isn't a penalty. The referee, I think, even said, he didn't give it because he got a touch on the ball. Well, that's not in the rules. It just isn't. So why does everybody keep saying that? I know it must be something that the referee takes into account when he decides whether it's careless, reckless, or endangering a player. But it simply is not the case that if you touch the ball, it cannot be a foul.
And Simon,
that's true, but it is something that they take into account. You're right, and the laws of the game say what they say. But there's a reason why VAR officials, when they're looking at those replays all the time, start going, "Oh, no, he's got contact on the ball there." There's a reason why they're saying that, because not everything is the black and white law, is it? There's a common sense there, and the aim of what he's doing is to try and play the ball. Now, is it careless if he plays the ball? I don't think it's careless. I think that what you're talking about there, Justin, applies much, much more to the reckless one, where you can go in and, like you say, take the ball and then totally destroy the man as well. And you say, well, it doesn't really matter that he took the ball because he's caused damage and it's violent and it's reckless. The careless one's a bit of a weird one, really. I mean, is it careless if you make a sliding tackle in the penalty area in a goal-scoring situation and play the ball? Is it careless? That's a bloody good tackle.
He's not played the ball, though, has he?
He hasn't played the ball.
He hasn't played the ball.
The ball moves away and you can see it clearly.
He makes
it's entirely accidental that he touches it.
He makes the challenge. He doesn't get the ball. Edwards cuts in and Edwards pokes the ball onto his foot. He hasn't won the ball. It hits him. Now, what I was sort of saying after seeing it back, first viewing, 100% penalty. Second viewing, I'm thinking, if there's going to be some benefit of the doubt, I'll give it to the defender in this instance. But as Julian referenced, the second penalty against Sunderland, where after that I spoke about benefit of the doubt, especially bearing in mind that it was the second bloody penalty in 5 minutes. And we didn't get the benefit of the doubt of the first one, which was outside the box, offside, and not a foul. Now, we did get it that night, and then yesterday, North End have got that benefit of the doubt. But the defender does not win the ball. It hits him purely by accident, just because he's stretched for it, he's missed it, and it hits him. Now, if that's winning a ball, then fair enough. But I will say though, the supposed block that Lyle Foster made in the first half, when there's a great chance and it goes over, he's nowhere near the ball. Now, again, whether they would have given a penalty had they seen that, because the lad's already taken the opportunity and he's blazed it over.
Yeah.
Now, do they then go back and say Foster's caught him? He just catches, it's almost like a coming together of boots, if you will. But Foster's studs are high. Now, that could equally have been...
And he catches him.
There's a couple.
There's a
couple of key differences there, though, Chris. I think one, Foster didn't impede him from creating a goal scoring opportunity. As you say, he'd already struck the ball.
That's Edwards, he's taken the opportunity.
Yeah. And Edwards was impeded in what would have potentially progressed to a goal scoring opportunity. But the other thing is, every Burnley player around that incident appealed it. They all went to the ref.
Yeah.
No Preston player appealed for that one that Foster did. So, yeah.
And Woody, I mean, all round, an afternoon to forget for the referee, Andrew Kitchen, I think it was, who I think was also the referee for the Rovers game, wasn't he? Kind of pretty shite for the Rovers game. Even shitter against North End. Just the quality referee we've taken issue with a few times, but I don't want to say it's getting worse, but we keep getting certain characters as referees who just aren't up to the job, are we? And yesterday, on Saturday, Mr. Kitchen was, showed for the second time this season in a big local game that, he just has no control over what it was. I mean, he got in the way several times, had to have a drop ball a couple of times. It's really frustrating, isn't it, as a football fan when the referee is as poor as he was.
Yeah, it almost feels like it's a different set of rules at times in the Championship. The kind of level of play and some of the, we'll call it roughhousing for want of a better expression, that folks get away with in the Championship. You wouldn't get away with it in the Premier League.
No.
It feels a little bit more anti-football sometimes. And then you throw in kind of some of the really odd, weird decisions. But going back to the penalty, would that... in the Premier League, had it been given, because you can understand why that would have been given at first, would it have been overturned because he'd touched the ball?
Yeah, it would.
I'm not too sure, but we'll never know. And it's a debate point. But I think some of the refereeing that we've seen this year has been absolutely shocking. Not just for the fact that it's been bad, but it's been badly inconsistent. And then, it would be nice to get out of this division just for that. I never thought I'd be almost a VAR advocate this season, as almost.
Oh, dear God.
One to me longing for it. We wouldn't be talking about this shit otherwise, would we?
Dear God.
Yeah.
Just let's move on to the kind of the other incident. Then the other kind of big incident, which was the incident with Hannibal and Osmajic, who we believe the Burnley complaint is that he made a racist comment towards Hannibal. I think that it's been reported by Alan Nixon, the journalist, that Osmajic apparently said bad man, and Hannibal thought he'd said black man. That is the report that has come out from Alan Nixon. Not quite sure where Alan's got that from, but it was clear from Hannibal's reaction that something had happened. Chris, I mean, earlier in the season we would have perhaps seen a more, let's say, immature reaction from Hannibal. I mean, you could see he was genuinely upset by what Osmajic had said to him, didn't react and took it to the referee straight away, didn't he? What did you make of it? Because I guess for Julian, and we'll come on to him in a second, sat at the ground, there's perhaps not, you don't understand really what's going on. There's just this stoppage and a very angry and upset-looking Hannibal.
Well, exactly. You see, you watch the TV footage and his face drops. He's horrified by what he's heard. Now, that's it. We'll come on to the whys and wherefores. I mean, they've obviously filed a report. That Scott Parker certainly has to, to take it seriously. If Hannibal believes that, whether it's right or wrong, if Hannibal believes that, we have to take it incredibly seriously, and it has to go through the due process. As Osmajic, he's innocent until proven guilty. On the flip side of that, and we'll see whether there's any. I mean, it seems to me. I think the FA should just go on Twitter and follow the expert lip readers in both camps who have both said. Apparently he's called him a knobhead, and he's called his mother effing this and that and the other. And then Alan Nixon's reported that this morning, and will it come out in the wash? So it remains to be seen, I suppose. But the depressing thing is sort of like like Simon was saying, like the tribal. North End fans are back in there, man. Burnley fans back there, man, and we're all jumping to conclusions before it's been played out. And the problem is that we've got this FA Cup tie in a couple of weeks, and if you end up with this sort of like Suarez Everett scenario, won't you? Is he going to shake his hand and blah blah blah, and it could get a bit tasty then. But you can see that. I mean, I've seen so many people sort of almost like, well, whatever, because Hannibal's a prick. Like, well, I don't care whatever you think of the lad. As Parker said, he's a diamond. He said, I love the bones of him. He's not a liar. He believes that has been said, and we need to sort of very get to the meat and bones of it, really.
Yeah, and Simon, I think there's some report. I think the BBC reported that a Preston player went into the Burnley dressing room to apologise. CJ Egan-Riley certainly looked very upset when one of the Preston North End fans was one of the Preston North End players, I should say, was talking to him. The part of the problem here, of course, is that nobody comes out and says what is believed to have been heard by Hannibal. And again, we're certainly not, we're not in any way, suggesting that Hannibal is making it up, but we're following the due process, as Chris said, of Osmajic being innocent until proven guilty. It kind of creates a vacuum, doesn't it? Because we get like little pockets. I think there's a report yesterday of a Preston North End fan being arrested for racially aggravated chanting, but, Lancashire police have said that wasn't the case. It kind of creates this weird vacuum sometimes, doesn't it, where you get it filled by the amateur lip readers and the rumours and the suggestions and all of this kind of thing. And until we see the transcripts of an FA investigation or a hearing, we're not really going to know what's been said and what the ramifications of that are we?
Well, I mean, it's serious stuff, isn't it, when you make these kind of accusations against somebody, and it can damage their reputation for their entire career, really. I mean, you could see a situation where if he is guilty of this, that Preston North End might let him go, and then he doesn't play in English football again. So it's serious stuff with serious consequences. It does frustrate me, and it's frustrating when I've had to report these as a journalist, that people don't come out and say exactly what's been said, because... And I don't know what harm there could be. We're all, fairly grown up to handle. If he's used some, terrible racist term, I think, we can all handle hearing it. if it's a serious matter that we're supposed to be paying attention to. Hannibal puts a post out saying, I won't be silent about this, but you kind of are being silent if all you're saying is, he said something racist to me. So, I mean, it's up to him what he wants to say about it, of course, but I do wish that in these cases in general, people had come out and say what exactly it is we're talking about. I mean, the procedure they're extremely difficult. I had a little bit of experience on the other side of this, when I worked for a football organisation in this part of the world of dealing with these kind of cases. It's extremely difficult. People throw around casually terms like, oh, it's he said, she said, and all that kind of stuff. And it is really, when you get down to it, when you're it's a disciplinary committee and one person says this is what was said and there's no evidence that they've said that, to actually make really serious decisions about ruining somebody's career, finishing somebody off with their contract and fines and bans and all the rest of it, if you have absolutely no evidence to work off other than the word of one person. It is extremely difficult. So people are always accusing football authorities of not being strong enough on racism, often with merit in that argument. But sometimes I do feel a bit sorry for them, because what is that disciplinary panel going to get? Are they going to get some audio? If they have, then it's a pretty clear-cut case then, isn't it, if they can hear what he's saying. The context will be, what was said before, what was, all the rest of it will get brought up as well. But fundamentally, it looks to everyone's eye like he said something terrible. I'd like to know what he said.
Yeah. And Julian, I mean, with a lot of these things, I mean, it's always the same with VAR, God forbid, when we're in the Premier League as well. You're kind of the last to realise and know what's going on, aren't you? Because there's not an announcement saying, hang on a minute, we're just trying to clear up an incident here where somebody's accusing somebody else of saying something racist. What was kind of everyone's feeling when, this kind of fracas that wasn't really a fracas, when if punches are being thrown and shoves are being aimed in people's direction, you can see it's a fracas. But this just felt like Hannibal reacting to something and going to ref. What did you think had happened? Kind of sat there in the stands at Deepdale. Kind of sat there in the stands.
Well, initially, it was clear something had happened, and it obviously involved Hannibal, and that's no surprise, because I think it's pretty obvious in recent weeks, especially, he seems to have been targeted by opposition. I think they can get at him because of his temperament and what have you, because he does play on the edge. He's a really passionate lad, and for good and for bad, actually. But as it unfolded and all the players became involved, and it was, I would say it was a good 5 minutes that play was stopped. And during that time, we were obviously talking, and we kind of figured it out. We said, I think he's making an allegation that he's been racially. That's what people around me were saying, So it did seem that was the case. In terms of some of the other stuff that obviously that we learned later, looking at Twitter and X as it is now on the train on the way back, there was the report. I think it was Matt Scrafton from the Burnley Express had initially reported that somebody had been arrested for racially abusing him at the end of the game, as well as a Preston fan. I think that was seen not to be the case, and he sort of rescinded his comment subsequently. But I think it has been confirmed that they are actually investigating that allegation. But also, I've not heard anybody deny this report. I think that Matt covered it, but as you say, BBC as well, that a Preston player went into the Burnley changing room and apologised. Now, if that is the case, that would seem to me to be quite a damning sort of factor to consider within the whole of this, really. That would suggest something racist was said and he's guilty. But as you say, innocent until proven guilty. But if that's true, that the Preston player went and apologised, that's pretty damning, really.
Yeah. Say Matt, to say, I know Matt. I've worked with Matt for probably 6 or 7 years while we were on the centralised sports desk, and he came in covering Blackpool, and he's ended up covering Burnley. And he's been taking a bit of stick for his Blackpool past, obviously, with the North End rivalry, and obviously Burnley speaks for itself as well. But Matt will have been brief. He's not just plucked this out of thin air. He'll have been briefed on the matter, and it's sort of ironing itself out. That I believe Matt was saying that the police believe they can identify someone who's made a comment, and so on and so forth. And the sort of twist on the Preston player going into the dressing room to apologise. It sort of got amended to checking on the welfare of Hannibal rather than an apology as such. And so even that's being questioned now because the initial statement about the PNE fan was incorrect. So it's who knows? But like I say, if someone from Preston has gone to sort of make some sort of statement to Burnley, it's pretty damning, isn't it?
Yeah. I should just point out, I taught Matt Scrafton on his journalism course, so I 100% know that he will not have published anything without formally checking it several times over.
It's no allegiance, Matt.
No, exactly. He's a big Lincoln City fan, isn't he?
Yeah. I gave him my programme after they knocked us out of the cup. I didn't want it.
No, exactly. No, after we got knocked out by them. But yeah, I mean, Justin, there's been an outpouring of support from the other Burnley players, which we've talked a lot about this group looking very, very together, and I know it's kind of it's a symbolic thing and things like that. But with the cup game coming up and with this kind of run, does something like this create a bit of that kind of siege mentality? Because as Julian says, he has been targeted quite a bit, and perhaps coming back from his ban, he appears just to walk away now from that provocation. When he's been, a bit of needle, bit of kicking and things like that. Does that help kind of create a bit of siege mentality within this group that, you kick one of us, you kick all of us?
Well, I think it's bound to, isn't it? Especially when they all come together, after the game to support each other. And, a lot of the players have put messages out of support for Hannibal and that sort of thing. I think it's a strange one. It's the fact we've got to play them again in a couple of weeks at the same ground adds a bit of extra to it. But I think there's every chance we'll make quite a lot of changes for that game anyway. So there's every chance that Parker might take the opportunity to take the sting out of it a little bit and maybe not put Hannibal in that situation again. I'm not saying that he should. I'm not saying that would be the right thing to do. But I think obviously changes will be made as we've done in the previous rounds of the FA Cup. I mean, if there's any sort of pleasing element to this, it's the way Hannibal reacted, isn't it? I mean, I remember when the incident actually took place, he was actually running away from an altercation, laughing, trying to laugh it off. And I remember being quite pleased about that, thinking, well, that's not typical behaviour for him. Normally, he'd have some afters, wouldn't he? And then the way he reacted by, obviously he was immediately appalled by what he thought he'd heard and went to the referee rather than tackle the player himself. And then that sort of rallying round afterwards of all the players sticking together. I think if there's any positive to take from it, it's that it's small beer compared to what is alleged to have taken place. I think in terms of, I can understand why they don't say what they think has been said before it has been proven in some sort of investigation, because I think you talk about like an information vacuum where all these different theories pop up. That only happens on Twitter, doesn't it? I don't look at Twitter, so I don't ever see any of that. So I don't know that that's happened. And I think sometimes when you're in that world, that seems to be like the whole of it. I've not seen any of that stuff. I've heard a little bit about from other sources about what's supposed to have been said. I've seen the footage, which is actually going to be quite useful, I think, because you can sort of see what he's kind of saying. He does disappear behind Hannibal for a fraction of a second, which makes it a little tricky. But I think that footage will be very useful in getting to the bottom of it. So that sort of information vacuum wouldn't be closed by explaining what he'd actually said. I think it would just inflame the situation and make it worse, especially with all these online, these social media experts that Chris was talking about. And I think the bottom line is we're just going to have to wait to find out what has exactly happened when the investigation into it has taken its course. And until then, I'm just going to forget about it.
Yeah, and Woody, I was going to bring up Osmaich's previous ban for biting a Blackburn Rovers player, and also denying that despite there being video evidence. But let's try and end on a positive. And And first of all, Woody, I mean, what a blissful life Justin must lead, not being on Twitter / X. I mean, that's a positive in itself. But we'll perhaps talk a bit more about this.
I envy that.
We'll perhaps talk about this more in depth in our preview show on Thursday ahead of Sheffield Wednesday. But another positive is more minutes for Marcus Edwards. Scott Parker said after the game that they'd been kind of treating him with a bit of caution since he came in, because he's not played very much, kind of lost his place when Amarin moved to Man United and then had a couple of injuries.
Yeah, he's starting to look more and more like he should be battling for a starting spot, because even though they've only been very minor minutes, the ball does stick to his foot and things seem to happen and they want to start playing through him in this, and it seems like everybody sees him as somebody who can change the game. And we know that Parker has a tendency to just, previous sides to be very, to have certain favourites and to only have very particular creative outlets. And I think that it will be nice to see Marcus Edwards become one of those.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, we'll perhaps pick up on that and the kind of conundrum of what does Scott Parker do against Sheffield Wednesday. It's another non-3 p.m. game, of course, this week. But yeah, thank you very much to our special guest, Julian. Hopefully we'll get our very own JJ back on sometime soon again. But yeah, we'll be back on Friday with the usual episode, previewing that Sheffield Wednesday clash. Always something quite nice about getting the game out of the way nice and early on a weekend, and then having the weekend to kind of watch the other results come in. But until then, until we see you again, don't forget, follow us on Twitter, at BL Podcast. Don't forget the Substack from the blend.substack.com. And yeah, until then, up the Clarets.
How many times do I have to tell you? Stop moaning!